Hello guys, Stixie's here. Was just making a video. Wanted to show you guys the new DPS tank I've been working on. It's a Templar. I have a few more to come as well, which I will put a teaser of one of the following videos going to be at the end of this video. Essentially what we're going to be doing today is talking about this DPS tank. So a little bit of a different style of tanking that may be a little bit more unique for a lot of you. It involves doing a lot more damage as a tank. It's especially good in situations where your healers are doing a very good job at... First, let's go over the gear. The first thing we're going to go over with is we are going to be rocking with a Nernhoned... equip the correct weapon. Nernhoned main hand. And the reason why we're doing that is it's going to give us that nice little boost in weapon damage. It's going to be a nice little effect for this build to make it work and perform a little more efficiently. We don't need the extra resistances, and Infused is not going to provide us more with a weapon damage enchant. We're also running a sturdy shield with a prismatic glyph on it, optimized when you're doing a DPS tank. And yes, I am aware that it's a very popular and considered a meta tank set, and that's the whole point of this build. It's to optimize yourself for this set so that way you can get the most out of it. The next thing we're running is a Maelstrom bow with a Crusher enchantment on it. The reason why we're running this is our main version to replace Blockade is going to be Endless Hail. With Endless Hail, we're going to get that nice boost in DPS as a passive damage. Because, I mean, of course, in the end, we are still tanks. The only thing we're going to be able to do is when we have active time in between key moments of blocking, we could provide more damage. But that does not take away from the fact that we are still tanks in the end, and we need to make sure where things are gathered and stacked, which is going to optimize our damage even more from the Endless Hail. The next thing we're going to go over is our monster set. One thing you could wear is Stonekeeper, as you just saw me change from, but the other thing that I'd highly recommend doing, just because of our skill choice as well, and the passive damage is fantastic from this, as well as providing AoE debuff, is Thurvican. Thurvican is a fantastic set, and as you take damage, you're going to be able to get an AoE proc, which will continue to grow in size over its 8-second duration. Essentially, what's nice about this effect is you're going to be able to proc a continuous damage pool underneath you. So while you're gathering your adds, you're going to continue to increase in damage, making it very key for you to be good at your stacking. This build is more advanced, so do not try to jump into this build right off the bat. It is key to learn your fundamentals of tanking, which we will do more videos on this channel in the future about. The other thing that I highly recommend pairing with this set is Yolnahkrin. I have perfected Yolnahkrin. All sturdy is what I would run for all of your body and shield. You could do infused, but the differences are very minuscule. The nice thing about this set is it of course provides you your minor ages for better protection on yourself. It also builds into the two stats we're more keen about, as well as makes it so you can provide group buffs while you are doing your job, which is taunting. And as mentioned, you can do one reinforced as I have here. Sturdy is the ideal trait though. It's always good to have your cost reduction on your block, especially due to the glyphs we are using. And we're going to go down to our jewelry, which this is where it makes a huge difference. This is where, if you are not super experienced as a tank, you may want to take it a little slow when it comes to using this build, as we do not run any recovery or sustain jewelry on this. The entire point of this build is being able to sustain on your own, so that way we can handle the extra cost reduction, well, not the extra cost reduction, but the extra reduction in our sustain in place for more damage. With this damage, we'll be able to pump out as much as 20k, or even more in several situations. That's 20k single target DPS. The fantastic thing about this build is it gets stronger in AoE fights, making it so in key moments that the group is struggling to burn down adds or certain things, if things are being held and you have your taunts on what you need, you can provide extra damage to make things go faster. The next thing we'll go over are going to be our attributes. We have 47 points into health, 17 into stamina to help boost up that edge. We are using the Bewitched Sugar Skulls. Unfortunately, the little tooltips on these are a little off right now, but I will show you the food buff myself in a moment here. We also are using the Lord Mundus just to give us the extra edge and health. It's one of my favorite Mundus, one I primarily main for all my tanks. And so just to show you the full buff of the Bewitched Sugar Skulls, the food we are using, it gives you 4,620 health as well as 4,250 maximum stamina and maximum magicka, along with a 462 health recovery for 2 hours. It's a fantastic food as of this patch and after elsewhere. I actually removed vampirism from all of my tanks. Unfortunately, just due to some of the later game content such as VCR and VSS, being a vampire hinders you a little bit. Of course, that would depend on your group composition as well. Next, we're going to go over our skills. We're going to be using Ransack as our primary taunt, and the main reason for that is it does provide us the extra Maya protection, which is of course provided by your Radiant Ward as well. But unfortunately, just with how Ransack is the preferred more for tanks right now, because yes, Pierce Armor is going to give you your spell resist debuff as well as the physical. The only issue it runs into right now is the fact that the spell resistance is already being provided by your healer's Ellie Drain, or if you have a Magicka DPS willing to run that. So essentially it's kind of a wasted debuff, so might as well give yourself that more consistent higher uptime buff. The next thing we have is Honor the Dead, which is going to be a semi-emergency heal. The main reason for that is our fourth skill is going to be significantly better at it. But this skill does make that nice little cushion if you happen to fall below 75% health to be able to heal yourself and get most of that magicka back so you're not losing it. The next thing on this list is going to be our Radiant Ward. With Radiant Ward, it's going to be by far the most underrated things about Templar tanks right now. Radiant Ward provides you in this build a damage shield of 13,172, which will get stronger if you have a warden in the group, as it does scale with your health. It lasts for 6 seconds and does some minor damage to enemies nearby, but it also increases the shield's strength by 9% per enemy hit. It is a massive buff in the shield. I have had this shield go up to 21k at times. And for a spammable shield that has your resistances, which are capped, that is going to be very, very good. The next thing on the list is Resolving Vigor. This skill is by far the most underrated for tanks in general. Vigor is an insanely strong self-heal, and with this build, we almost have a 12k over 4 second base tooltip. I have checked this while being fully buffed, and you can get upwards of 15k. This can crit, which would also benefit from our biting jabs, giving us our major savagery. And if you have a Nightblading group, you also get minor savagery. This will make your heal tick upwards of 5 to 6k per crit. It is a fantastic heal and is by far your most consistent survival skill. Of course, we also are running Biting Jabs, which is just going to do our nice little AoE damage. The tooltip may not seem like much, but it does a lot when you're in combat, especially due to the Burning Light passive that we will go over further. And I'm also running Barrier to provide a slightly higher magicka sustain if need be. Of course, the preferred morph being Reviving Barrier. You could also run plethora skills. You could run the Healing Ultimate if you'd like, or even just slot a Flawless Dawnbreaker for 3% more weapon damage. But the key part is we are going to be using this front bar ultimate primarily to either have a massive debuff through Nova, or to have a passive regeneration or skill or passive stat buff. Unfortunately, we're going to be keeping our Aggressive Warhorn on our back bar, and that's where we're going to continue off here. Aggressive Warhorn is going to be our main ultimate, providing an additional 10% max magicka and max stamina for the next 30 seconds for you and your teammates. Also, for the first 10 seconds, they're going to be receiving Major Force, increasing their critical damage by 15% for 10 seconds. Now we're just going to our passives right here, which make Templar by far one of the best tanks out there and very underrated. Of course, we have our blocking damage taken. Well, damage done by blocking targets is going to be increased, making it just so if we happen to face those NPCs that are going to be blocking a little bit, you still get that little bit of a damage buff to not make it fully flatten out. And of course, with this, we're also going to get minor protection for 6 seconds after every time we use our Radiant Ward. We're also going to be able to proc our Adric Spear's Burning Light passive. This is going to be the main thing coming from jabs and will be a significant damage increase. Probably one of the most broken passives in the game right now, if I do say so. It just provides an immense amount of damage, especially on pure DPS classes. And if you PvP, you will know that all too well, honestly. The next thing we have is our Balanced Warrior passive, which is going to increase our weapon damage by 6%, making use of those glyphs and those enchantments that we have on, as well as it's going to increase our spell resistance by 2,640. Little known fact is Templar has one of the highest, if not the highest, base resistances in the game, especially given the fact of our Restoring Focus. Our Restoring Focus is going to give us our major ward, well, our major resolve now, and restore 240 stamina every 1 second, equating to about 480 stamina recovery. Also, when we're standing inside it, it does provide us 50% stronger on our major resolve, so it's going to be quite an increase in that stat. We also, and as mentioned, we have our Endless Hail, which is going to be our main way of proccing Crusher, as well as keeping our passive damage up. We also have Inner Beast for our range taunt as a stamina taunt, so that way we can also make our enemies take 5% more damage when we do need to use this. Stamina is not a massive issue on this build, so it's going to make it quite a bit of use here. And of course, we're also running Ritual of Retribution to provide us with a nice passive heal for us and our allies within a 12 meter radius. And it's going to roughly equate to about a 1.7k base heal every 2 seconds, which can crit, as well as dealing 1.7k magicka. The thing that a lot of people pass over with some of these aspects when it comes to this is that it does scale with stamina or magicka depending on which is higher, which is our stamina here. Also, we have our Silver Leash just to get an extra chain pull for when need be, as well as a snare when needed. Next, we're going to go over our Dawn's Wrath. Dawn's Wrath does provide us with a lot of great abilities, especially from Power of the Light. We also could use Living Dark if you need something that's a little bit more of a proactive heal than just Vigor. If you're doing VSS and you don't necessarily need your chain pull as a main tank, Living Dark is one of the best heals that you can have slotted on your bar to make sure you survive. Of course, and if you're in a heavy situation where you're not quite able to get that comfortable jabbing situation in, Power of the Light is your next best bet. Also providing you with a Minor Fracture and Minor Breach to make your allies deal roughly about 2.8% more damage for the next 9 seconds, copying some of the damage they take and making it up to a 13k hit potentially. Of course, we also have Radiant Glory. If you choose to use this, that's up to you. It's just a skill that I've had unlocked in case I feel the need to use it. I haven't had many applications for it yet, but you never know. Also, with these passives, we do get a 2-second duration increase to our Sunfire, our Living Dark, as well as the Solar Flares, and our Nova Ultimate. That will just provide a nice little extra duration, so that way we can kind of keep the train rolling. And every time we use a Dawn's Wrath ability, we're going to get 3 ultimate that can proc every 6 seconds. Casting a Dawn's Wrath ability also provides minor sorcery for our team. So if you don't have a Templar in the group already, and you have a very magic heavy group, it's always going to be worth using Power of the Light to try to provide that extra spell damage increase to your allies. And it also increases your healer's healing output, so if you have it, it may be worth using. Templars also inherently have a 5% cost reduction to their ultimates, health, magicka, and stamina cost abilities, making it a little easier to sustain when playing this style of combat. With the Restoring Light, we have Remembrance as our passive here. It's just going to be a nice little way to give yourself major protection while providing your allies heals for 4 seconds, as well as a immunity to all disabling effects. And as mentioned prior, we have our Honor the Dead here for the burst heal, as well as a Magicka Sustain return. If you need to, you can try out using Ritual of Rebirth. I haven't had too much luck with this personally, but I do know some people that like this. Another great skill for situations where you're gathering up ads, but there's not a whole lot of chainable ones, or they are very squishy, like in Maw, when you have a lot of the little swordsmen that run around. They're not necessarily a big threat, and they tend to die to cleave really fast. So having Repentance can give you a nice little boost to sustain, replacing it with your Silver Leash on the back bar. Next, we have our Ritual Retribution, which we have already covered, along with Restoring Focus for our Sustain. In our passives, we do have a 12% increase with our Restoring Light healing effects, depending on the severity of the target's wounds, which does apply to yourself with Honor of the Dead. This makes a very strong burst heal when needed, but Vigor is still our main go-to. While standing in your own Cleansing Ritual, Rune Focus, or Rite of Passage, which Cleansing Ritual and Rune of Focus we will pretty much have all the time on us as they are key parts to our build. After leaving them or remaining in them every now and then, it does provide you with minor mending for 4 seconds, making you so you can put out more healing as well as heal yourself more efficiently. And enemies that are inside those effects are snared for their movement speed by 30%, which this passive is getting changed with the next patch that's upcoming, HarrowStorm. This passive is actually going to increase our block mitigation by 10%, raising the value of a Templar tank even further. This provides just a bonus to our Restoring Aura durations. Our Healing Ritual also grants 2 ultimate for when we're using it to allies that are under 60%. And our Rite of Passage ultimate will give us 16.5k resistances. We don't use that too much, so that last portion is not too helpful for us. One of the best things about a Templar tank, especially if you choose to be an off tank for a particular group, is you're going to have a 20% resurrection speed increase, and those allies will come up with more health. That's going to be a massive benefit, especially if you're off tanking for a vast run, to where there's going to be a lot of free time or potential downtime where you can get somebody up. Also, you just have a 50% chance to restore an empty soul gem after successful resurrection if you happen to carry those around with you. Along with our bow passives, we're going to essentially want to keep the main ones being accuracy for the potential extra crit, making it so we can do a little more damage and get a little better healing on our back bars when we happen to be there. We also have our cost reduction by 15%, make our bow a little bit more cost efficient for us, as it does cost us 3,645 stamina. And as, of course, the last one we need if we happen to be in a situation where we can peck off some shots, like if we're going to cleanse ourselves in VMA's first boss, you can turn and while you're moving back to cleanse and just pop some arrow shots, so your next volley that you lay off in those 5 seconds afterwards is going to be even more powerful. Hasty Retreat is also a great one to have. I'll actually get that now. So if you happen to have the extra skill points, it's not necessary, but it is very good to have so you can get the extra major expedition when you decide to start going. And with our swordboard passives, the key things we want is Ransack, and if you happen to need to switch some skills around and you want Heroic Slash, feel free. Absorb Missile does have its application sometimes to replace over Honor of the Dead if you are in VCR or an area where you're taking a lot of projectiles. We want all of our passives here for the cost reduction as well as the block cost reduction. We also, of course, get our increase of 5% weapon damage, and the amount of damage you can block is increased by 20%. Always great when you need a bash, more damage, and cheaper. More than happy. We are DPS tanks in this build. We also have our ability to reduce projectile damage and ranged attacks. Fantastic. And our movement speed while blocking is a very underrated thing. It's always great to be able to move faster when you need to block damage at the same time. Makes it very good for kiting certain situations, like if you're dancing the VMAL meteors or more. We're in all heavy, so we only really need the heavy armor passives. You could do 5-on-1, but I feel like the resistances get a little too low and doesn't give you as much flexibility when it comes to options. The extra resources is not a massive difference when it comes to comparing the two. So you can do either or depending on your preference. For Fighters Guild, we are of course going to be running with the Slayer passives as well as Banish the Wicked and Intimidating Presence. You could get Skill Tracker as well, but I don't feel like it's necessarily too demanding, as we don't really use too much of the Fighters Guild abilities for pure damage situations. So the passive aspect is the more important part. With Undaunted, we do have Overflowing Altar for when a group does need us to be able to run for the minor lifesteal AoE. And as prior mentioned, you can get Trapping Webs that you want. It's not as powerful as it used to be, but it is an option. We do have Inner Beast for the increase to 5% increase to the enemy's damage. 5% of the to make the enemies take 5% more damage from our attacks, and also have a potential synergy for allies to do more damage. We also have Bone Shield to provide ourselves a little bit of a damage shield, but it's mainly going to be used for the synergy for our allies, as Radiant Ward is stronger than the shield. We also have Necrotic Orb. We just morphed this to the Healing Orb if we want to provide an additional orb to the group if they need the healing support or need a synergy. We're going to have both these passives for the 4% max magicka health and stamina return when using this, alongside with the Undaunted Mantle to get the 2%, as there's no reason not to have 2% even if we're in all heavy. Free stats is free stats in that aspect. In the Hero Assault, anti-cavalry caltrops are decent. I haven't had too much success with this one, but it's really nice for its extended duration. We do want more Horn of Course as well as Resolving Vigor. For support, we're going to, of course, use Purge. Morph it to Efficient Purge if you'd like. It's going to be very helpful for VHOF if the group needs a little extra help purging. And have Stalwart Guard. You can use either Morpho Guard. It's always great for certain situations where the tank you're working with may need additional mitigation. We are in North, so we're going to make sure we have all of our passives for the max health and cold resistance. Being immune to Chill is actually a massive benefit, as Chill does apply minor mayhem to you. We also have the increase to max stamina, and then the smaller passive of being the ulti gen at 5 ulti every 10 seconds, which is about half an ultimate a second. It's not super great, but it is there. We also have our rugged passive, which is going to give us a physical and spell resistance increase of 3,960, which is roughly about 6% mitigation. It's a fantastic passive to have. Wouldn't recommend anything more. And in Alchemy, we're going to make sure we have our medicinal use, as we will be using weapon power pots if we don't feel like we are going to actively need our tripods. In situations that are a little bit more lax, that's going to be our preferred potion of use. So that way we can provide our additional crit, which we already get from biting jabs, as well as the major brutality to make it so that way we can get the little extra damage output from our weapons, or weapon damage glyphs on our jewelry. Last thing we're going to cover is our CP, which is going to be very different for a lot of people because of the fact that we are providing DPS while tanking. Here we have 23 points in Warlord, just to give the extra break free cost, as it's always going to be helpful. We also have 5% reduction in Bashing. We're running 56 in Tenacity and 56 in Arcanist. Even though we are going for a stamina heavy build, it's still always great to have the Magicka Recovery, as when we're blocking in situations we do lose our stamina recovery. We also have 66 in Shadow Ward for the extra block reduction, and 61 points into Tumbling for the 21% dodge roll mitigation. Just to help, reduction. Just to make it a little easier for our sustain when it does come to the stamina abilities that we need to use. For CP, we're going to be using 64 in Blessed for the 13% healing done increase. Just to make it so that way we can heal ourselves a little stronger. It's just because we're doing DPS doesn't mean we shouldn't be tanking. We're also going to be running 56 in Thaumaturge, 56 in Precise Strikes. Just get about 20% out of both of those, as well as 38 points in Piercing for 3.2k penetration for our physical damage, as well as 56 points into Mighty to get the extra 12% base damage, which is going to be fantastic for our output. In our red CP, we're running 56 Ironclad, 56 Hardy, 56 Elemental Defender, 51 Thick-Skinned, and that's just going to cover our general bases. For majority of raids, you're not going to need to change out of either of those. It's going to provide a lot of mitigation for you. There's very few raids where I'll even touch the red CP as a Templar with our bonus mitigation. It's very rare that we'll ever need to change this. And we also have 32 points into quick recoveries. It's always great to have more healing received for those particular content that people would normally want to change their CP for. And the last bit, we're putting 19 points into heavy armor focus to get the 1,815 physical resistance points, just to make our mitigation a little bit more even out there. Well, that's it for the build today, guys. If you have any other questions or have any concerns, don't be afraid to send me a message. I am at Stixius on PCNA, or you leave a comment in the description. Well, leave a comment below, like and subscribe, and thank you very much. I'm out.